Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be looking at Stratosphere from Legends Playing Card Company. Now, this deck is one of a few different decks released at the start of 2021 that really seem aimed at highlighting some of the new and experimental technologies that Legends has at their disposal when producing really interesting and unique tuck cases and decks of cards. This one plays around with Mylar lamination. Mylar is really this super thin, highly reflective foil that can be laminated on top of paper, gives it that really glossy feel to it, and they make heavy use of that throughout this deck. We'll talk more about that as we get through. Now, the deck itself kind of has a space theme to it. Stratosphere is one of the layers of the atmosphere, ironically not the layer of the atmosphere where astronauts typically go. Kind of a mismatch between the name and the more spacey theme to the whole deck, but nothing too egregious. The deck's designed by Nick Vlau. You may know him from, among other decks, the Regalia decks from Shin Lim. Really fantastic set of decks, but he's the designer behind this one here. The tuck case itself doesn't have any embossing, but it makes use of that Mylar lamination. Basically, the cardboard was layered with a holographic Mylar foil. It's the same foil that's used in like solar sails, so it kind of ties into that space theme. And it has that really beautiful rainbow effect to it. And then everything you see here, the dark blue, is printed on top of the Mylar. And depending on how heavily they print it, you can either have parts where basically the entire reflective coating is shining through, or areas where it's just sort of peeking through. Not sure how well it shows up, but some of these areas in here, as you tilt in the light, you can just see that rainbow glow barely coming through that blue ink. So really interesting effects that you can get from layering the ink. Really looks great in the bright lights. This has Stratosphere, finest quality playing cards in the center, the 4 pips, and then this sort of darker scene highlighted with the subtle holographic effect with that space theme in the back. Kind of reminds you of like satellites floating in the back. You have the stars and the planets, and then a really ornate border around the edge. Really nice look to it overall. Definitely doesn't look as good when you get it in a darker light, darker setting, but once you get it out in the light, this tuck case really does glow. Sides just says Stratosphere on both sides. Some very simple ad copy for Legends and Nick Vlau, and you can see this is on their classic cardstock with the Mylar film. And then at the top, there's a little extra ornamentation. And then over here is the preview of the back design of the cards, done in more of that brilliant holographic Mylar. And it is kind of done backwards, so the thumb seal is here where you would, or the thumb opening is here on what you would traditionally think of as the back of the deck, is actually has the front. Open it up. Nothing too much printed on the inner flaps, and then you get some subtle, some small bit of interior printing, just showing you the sort of different layers of the atmosphere. And there you can see the Stratosphere up here in that sort of 10 to 50 kilometer range. Astronauts, by the way, are usually kind of way up here in the like 100 kilometers or something like that. So there is your tuck case. Very nice thick stock to it, very sturdy feeling tuck case. All right, let's get into the cards. And the most magnificent part of the whole thing has got to be these card backs. Beautifully done in heavy and highly reflective Mylar holographic effect to it overall. Just like the tuck case, this is done by printing the entire card back, kind of laminating it with that Mylar foil, and then printing the blue on top. And by printing actually a layer of white ink and then a layer of blue ink, you can kind of completely block out so those blue parts remain dark even as you shine this in the light. But really brilliant effect to it overall. I love the contrast with the dark blue. I think it still stands out no matter what light. Like even when you get this in full light, that blue design really still stands out against the holographic foil. Great mix to it overall. Really brilliant shine to this. And it has a very kind of busy back design, very space inspired. You have the 2 circular elements that are kind of reminiscent of satellites, lots of stars and planets in the back, and then a thick border around the edge. I like what's going on here. I like the line art style. I'm personally a fan of line art. I think it's really well done, and then finishes out in a nice, thin, perfectly centered holographic border. So brilliant shine to these backs. Definitely going to be the highlight of the deck overall. All right, get 2 extra cards, 2 sort of line art drawings as jokers, and these showcase another interesting feature in the printing on these. Now, one features a rocket, one features kind of a weather balloon with stars and planets in the back, done in a mixture of white, black, and then that metallic gold. But parts of this are kind of accented with UV spot printing on top of the gold. So you'll see here, like, look at the weather balloon here. As I tilt it in the light, you may be able to see that that entire weather balloon kind of shines on its own. That's because of the UV spot printing on top. So it's like a clear layer of printing on top of the gold metallic, which highlights even beyond the gold metallics that you see up here on the planets, gives an extra little bit of accent on other parts of the design. Really cool effect to it overall. And then here on the rocket ship itself is given that same treatment just on top of the white. So the rocket itself, even though it's just white on white, still managed to have its own glow. Cool effect to the 2 jokers. Love the idea of using that UV spot printing, and really doesn't add anything to the thickness of the cards or detract at all from the handling. So very nice on those. The 4 aces, only the ace of spades is the power ace, done in that black with the gold metallic ink. No UV spot printing on this one, but just a simple large ornamented spade pip with Stratosphere down the center. Nice custom pip and index, but still very easily readable in the corner. The other 3 aces are all fairly plain, just sort of enlarged pips in the center. After looking at all the brilliant colors on the back design and the other cards, these really kind of seem plain in comparison. All right, now getting to the number cards, they also are fairly ordinary, again, you know, in contrast to how brilliant the rest of it has been in terms of like brightness and shine. Just pretty standard. Definitely a custom layout of these, some slightly custom pips, but nothing that's gonna really stand out or look too out of the ordinary on these. I would have liked to have seen a little bit extra done, you know, maybe working in a little bit of that space theme or something like that, but decided to go with relatively standard pips. So black on black, blacks are black, reds are reds, nothing too out of the ordinary on these. All right, there's your number cards, and then we get into the quartz. And the quartz really double down on the space theme. All of the quartz are patterned after astronauts. Done in a 2-way quartz style with just that line down the center to divide them. Lots going on with the space, you know, the stars and the planets in the back. Mixture of that navy blue, almost black with the gold metallic ink. And then the gold visors on each one of the astronauts have been given that UV spot treatment, so giving the extra reflective glow to the visors themselves. Really cool effect to them overall. I, again, like the line work on these. I love the style on these court cards. Definitely fitting in with the space theme that the rest of the deck has. And on the negative side, I'll say as you go through the rest of these, they're basically repeated quartz as you go through. There's gonna be some slight differences, mostly kind of a mirror image, but like if I look at the King of Spades and the King of Diamonds here, same court, just mirror images of each other. So the black cards on the Kings are all gonna be facing left, red cards are gonna be facing right. Otherwise, same exact court cards. I wish, you know, even just something as simple as different poses on the other courts really would have gone a long way to kind of differentiate these a little bit. But I still think they're nice courts, even if I'm not a big fan of repeated courts. So that's the deck. Beautiful use of the foils, the Mylar, the gold metallic ink, the UV spot printing. Just great use of the technology to really enhance elements of the design. And as far as handling, these are very slightly thicker than your normal deck of cards. Not much. They claim that the Mylar film adds a fraction of a millimeter to the overall thickness of the deck. So you're not going to notice too much extra thickness. And I got to say, these actually handle pretty well. Usually when you get a foil deck or something like that, they don't handle as well. And with that Mylar coating on here, I would have expected this maybe to not handle quite as well right out of the gate. But these fan beautifully, they cut beautifully, and yet they're still thin enough to use for like dribbles or springs and things like that. And doesn't really do much, with all of the extra printing elements, nothing really detracting from the handling of these. So very impressed with that. So that's the deck. On the pro side, I think The holographic effect on this one is done great. I love the touches of the UV spot printing. I like the art style, and I'm impressed with the handling. On the downside, I wish they'd gone with some custom pips, maybe amped up a few of the other aces, and repeated quartz, always a little bit of a negative. I'm also a little bit bugged by the fact that they called it the Stratosphere deck, even though astronauts in space are at a much higher level of the atmosphere. Stratosphere is actually where you'll see like commercial planes and things like that. So a miss, I think, on the name of the deck. But overall, really great demonstration of what Legends is capable of with their printing. I love the experimentation, love what they've done here, and I'm excited to see some other designers start to use some of these technologies to produce some really interesting and standout decks in the future. That's it. That is the look at Stratosphere from Legends Playing Card Company. Hope you enjoyed, and make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings. Let me know what else you want to see in the future, and I'll see you for the next one.